So today was finally the day we got a look at the Nintendo Switch 2 in all of its glory, a full showcase of what this console is actually capable of. When you're talking about all of the new features, all the bells and whistles, we got that here. And honestly, I gotta say, I was actually a lot more impressed than I thought I would be, because prior to this show, I honestly wasn't really that excited for this console. And other people kind of felt similar to me in that, this kind of felt too similar to the original Switch, and I don't really blame people for thinking that way. However, if this direct was anything to go off of, it showed us that not only is this console going to be able to stand on its 2 feet as something that is new, something that is fresh, but I mean, this is going to be yet another massive success for Nintendo, probably even more than the Switch was, which is crazy to say. It was really like the smaller things with the Switch 2 that they revealed, right? Like the inclusion of Discord, which is something that I feel that the original Switch absolutely needed at launch, or at least some type of party system that you could actually just talk to your friends and not have to use some type of third-party tool or device to just be able to talk to your friends. It's honestly surprising that it took this long to get this sort of feature for the Switch, pretty much a standard for consoles in general, right? But I'm glad that we're getting it here now. On top of that, they also include a built-in mic, which is great, but I don't know if they specified whether you can use your own mic. I hope that's at least an alternative option. But the inclusion of game chat, this Discord lookalike, I don't know if I was saying it was Discord before. I am so glad they added this. Unironically, one of the features I was most excited for here. Though, of course, in your typical Nintendo fashion, they have to charge you to use the game chat. You have to have an online membership in order to use game chat. So to me, it's like they add this feature to use game chat, which is great, but then you have to actually pay for it. So it's like, at that point, why not just use a third-party app or just use your phone, download Discord for free on there and just talk to your friends there? Yeah, I don't know, locking game chat behind a paywall is kinda crazy. But regardless, I am still glad that they finally added this feature, something that should have been there from the beginning if I'm being completely honest. In addition to game chat, they also have a camera that you can now use while you're talking to your friends. All of this just makes me wonder, why didn't they just make, game chat something that you can use all of the time, not something that you have to have a membership for just to use the feature? That is something that really confuses me. Now, another feature I was really glad to see, something that I used to use all of the time with my friends back when I used to play on the DS, was game share. Being able to play with your friends as long as one person in the group has that game is amazing. At least this is one thing that Nintendo gets right when it comes to being consumer friendly, is letting people just play the same game, even if not everybody has the same game, right? As long as you're in the same room and not too far away from each other, this is just another great way to play without any caveats. Well, except for the fact that you're probably gonna have to have a membership in order to use this feature, but that's actually understandable. Not locking behind, game chat behind a membership. That's crazy. But yeah, no, this is great. This feature, game share, absolutely amazing. We get a look at how much bigger the screen is, looking a little bit similar to the OLED screen, except without the OLED. Instead, it'll be an LCD screen, which is completely fine, At the very least, it's going to include HDR, which is more of a standard with the current generation now. So it's good to see it at least be an option here. The ZL and ZR buttons on the side of the Joy-Con are a lot bigger now than they were on the original, and this is definitely a much needed revision to the console. So no more trying to awkwardly hit those buttons because your fingers are just too big. Again, this was much needed. Now, they do advertise that the Switch 2 is going to be able to run a smooth 120 FPS gameplay experience. Do I think that'll actually be the case?
No.
Do I think there'll actually be games that'll be able to hit that 120 FPS mark? Yeah, that might be the case. But as we've seen with a lot of new consoles in this generation, they like to advertise these features, make us believe that, it's gonna be a smooth gaming experience. Oh, they're gonna give us 4K, they're gonna give us 8K, right? But in reality, while they may support those features, most games are just not gonna be able to run at that type of performance. But it also gives us an indication that yeah, this Switch is way more powerful than the original. I mean, the first Switch could barely even handle running games at a smooth 30 FPS, right? So to see that the Switch 2 could supposedly run games at a smooth 120 FPS, that is pretty big. That is a pretty big leap. Hopefully the games that release are actually optimized well, but I will not hold my breath. Now, the Switch 2 specs are said to include 256 gigabytes of internal storage. It'll support up to 4K 60 frames per second visuals for games in docked mode. And of course, a new stand that'll be a lot more flexible, allow for more viewing angles, and be a lot more sturdy than what we got with the OLED Switch, and especially the original. I mean, man, we got a new Mario Kart, which has really been forever since we've seen a new Mario Kart game. But on top of that, we have so many third-party titles, so many re-releases that are coming to the Switch too. Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom will both be enhanced for Switch 2. I mean, these two games are the Switch, right? Like, this is what I think of when I think of the Switch. So of course, obviously these two games in particular were going to be enhanced for the Switch 2. Of course, we got Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, plus Starcross World, Pokemon Legends, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, on top of a bunch of third-party developers of third-party games that we're going to be seeing on this console very soon. I mean, it's just a stacked list, and you can see just how many games are going to be making it over to Switch 2 just within 2025. The most notable to me are going to be Split Fiction, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2027 Ultimate Edition, and of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrated Edition. At last, Switch players finally get to experience at least one of the modern Final Fantasy games. All is to say, I think this is really solid, right? Like, there is a lot here to love, a lot here to be excited for, and I think overall the presentation was absolutely solid. However, there are some caveats, some things that I just absolutely have to get off my chest, and this has created a lot of buzz on the internet already, and rightfully so. I mean, understandably so, right? Nintendo is looking to raise the retail prices of new games on the Switch 2 from $70 to $80.
No. Wait.
And while yes, you know, the Switch 2 looks great and everything they showed looked great, but now on top of having to pay, you know, $500 for a console, now for every single new game that you want to buy, right? Every new game that Nintendo puts out there, now you're gonna have to spend $80. I mean, that's going to be the standard price for new Nintendo Switch 2 games. This is not good, and not only because, like, yeah, this is extremely expensive already, right? Brand new games are already extremely expensive, just having to pay $70, but now $80, right? But the fact that this just sets a bad precedent within the gaming industry as a whole, and especially because it comes from Nintendo, right? The top dog. Every company now is going to look at Nintendo and be like, yeah, well, they're doing it, why can't I? So now, you know, it's kind of inevitable that we're gonna be seeing games rise up to $90 and eventually $100 for the retail standard price of a video game. That is insane. You couple that with consoles already being as expensive as they are and going to keep getting expensive as every new generation comes out, and when you're living in this type of economy, yeah, none of it really bodes well. So really, no one who complains about that is in the wrong at all. I mean, if this ends up creating controversy, I mean, hell, I am all for it, because $80 is absolutely insane, but it is what it is. Now, for all the Final Fantasy fans, for pretty much the past week, this Final Fantasy IX 25th anniversary website had been made. Of course, obviously a celebration for the game and the fans, to give us new merch, new collaborations, the stuff like that. But the reason why this created so much buzz was the fact that it was created months before the actual anniversary date. But not only that, it was created days before the big Switch 2 Direct. The perfect time to be able to market a brand new Final Fantasy remake of one of the most beloved titles in the series. Of course, fast forward to today, and we obviously didn't get that. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say that Square Enix knew that Final Fantasy fans were waiting for this type of announcement and gave us a Bravely Default remastered trailer instead. instead, with the opening character looking very similar to that of Garnet. And of course, this fooled a lot of people, especially those who have never played Bravely Default, especially myself. And I gotta say that, yeah, they got me pretty good. Despite that disappointment, Bravely Default does look really good. Definitely a JRPG I still have to get into. The reason why there was a lot of hype behind this Final Fantasy IX Remake making an appearance at the Switch 2 event is because it just makes sense, right? You know, from a marketing standpoint, to get this many eyes on a new Final Fantasy, that is pretty huge. Not just this many eyes, but really a new market for Final Fantasy, right? For newer Final Fantasy games. Though the game may not have been here, do not let that disappoint you. There is a reason why they're celebrating Final Fantasy IX's anniversary and not Final Fantasy VIII's. You know, why is that? Obviously, there is a reason for it. Now, why would that be, right? Obviously, they're not picking favorites like, oh my god, Final Fantasy VIII was trash, right? Nothing like that. I don't think Square Enix would actually do that. I think the reason why there is such a big celebration for Final Fantasy IX and not Final Fantasy VIII is simply because they have something planned for Final Fantasy IX. Because remember, back when Final Fantasy VII had its 25th anniversary celebration, Square Enix had something to show for it. They had something planned when they announced it. Obviously, they didn't do this for Final Fantasy VIII because, well, they don't have anything in the works for that game. Square just loves to keep 8 fans in the trenches, unfortunately. But if I did have to guess when we'll see some type of announcement or something FF9 related, I would say it'd be closer to its original launch date in July. Hopefully by then, Square Enix has some type of event planned, just like what happened with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Anyway, with all of that said, how do you guys feel about the Switch 2 after this direct? Are you personally going to get this day one, or are the prices just too steep for you, especially considering that retail prices for brand new video games have increased to $80 on Switch? Definitely be sure to let me know all of that and more down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one.